Well, for everyone logging on right now, my name's Josh Walker, and we're waiting to start an interview at 11 o'clock with a sustainability engineer named Mike Brown with the HKS office as part of our brand new series on virtual career day interviews for students sophomore plus or minus 3 years. So if you're a high school, middle school, or if you know somebody interested, pass them our link and we'll get started here in about 5 minutes. See everybody still logging on. I appreciate that. If you're expecting this call, you probably know that we're about to conduct an interview for a career day, virtual career day that we're starting here at HKS. This is the first of a series that we are doing. We are basically all working from home these days. We're aware that this is a weird and strange situation for students who are maybe looking for a connection with the professional world and the professional life. And so as a little bit of backstory, I design schools. That's my job. I've been doing that with HKS for the past almost 3 years now. I love it. It's my passion. And so what I'm here to do is share some of what we do with the students that we design for on a daily basis, because I know that they're looking for connection and opportunity to learn more about the world that maybe feels so distant in this time of social distancing. So we are going to get started here in about 3 minutes. I see the constant scroll of people joining. I'm hoping that we got the word out to as many students as possible, but if you know somebody who may not have gotten this link, who might be interested, I see people from Mexico joining. I'm very excited that we're reaching an international audience. As some of you may know, HKS is an international firm. We have offices all over the world, some in Shanghai, Mexico City. I know I personally work with someone who is basically starting her own office in, I want to say it's Brazil, because she was traveling there when COVID hit and she's stuck there. So she's got her HKS laptop and she's now our Latin America office in Brazil, because we're just an international firm and we're working with everybody everywhere to make things happen the way we used to back when we were all in localized offices. So I'm in one of probably over 500 Dallas offices, aka my house. Has our hiring process slowed down? Good question in advance. We've slowed down a little bit. We're trying to be more cautious about how we approach it as the client workflow process, that relationship is evolving. And so, yeah, hiring process has maybe slowed down a little bit around the world, but HKS is always looking for the right opportunities to bring people on board. Let's see. If we didn't, I see a question here, do we hire fresh architects? Absolutely. I started with HKS straight out of grad school in, let's see, that was May 2017. I've been working with them ever since. I've been working on the education team, as I mentioned. We also have teams specializing in sports complexes, hotels, hospitals, like transit agent or transit buildings like airports and train stations. We've got researchers. And that's kind of the opportunity that we're using to start this series, is that we have so many people who work on so much around the world. See a lot of people still joining and asking questions. That's great. We're going to be watching those and answering some of those towards the end of the video. Right now we're waiting on our interviewee to sign on. Should be here in the next minute or two, and we'll get started. And here we are. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Mike Brown, Sustainability Engineer with HKS Architects. Thanks for joining us, Mike.
Thanks for having me. Good morning.
Good morning to everyone who's jumping on here. We are starting. I'm going to give us another 2 or 3 minutes just to let a few people jump on that maybe didn't have the opportunity. But as we do, I'll introduce what this is all about for those of us who just joined in. My name is Josh Walker. I am an architect with HKS. We are third largest, roughly, architecture firm in the United States and one of the largest in the world. And we are headquartered here in Dallas, but nowadays we're all pretty much living and working from home. Like you, we're working and learning in new ways than we ever have before. And so we thought that we'd take this opportunity to give the public, and particularly students, an opportunity to peer back behind the curtain and see how we do what we do, why we do what we do, and maybe if what we do is of interest to you. And so one of the things I'm most excited about is the opportunity to learn about people and roles that maybe people don't realize are so critical for a big firm like this, because we have everybody from accountants, architects, interior designers, engineers, human resources, researchers, and everything in between. A lot of people I can't name just off the top of my head. Big shout out to our marketing team, by the way, to help make this happen. And so I want to make sure that we get a chance to highlight as many of them for as many of you as we can. So if you have questions, if you come up with a topic you'd like to hear more of as we go on, feel free to put a question in the conversation feed, and we've got people monitoring that, and they'll feed those questions to us if we don't get to them in the moment. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first guest for this inaugural session of the series, Mike Brown, Sustainability Engineer with HKS, based in the Dallas office. Mike, are you in the office today?
Surprisingly, yes, I am. Not necessarily because of this interview, but I had some other errands to run, and I was in the neighborhood, so I figured it'd be a nice backdrop. So.
Okay. I actually intended to be in the office for this, but got called away for a site visit earlier this morning. I had to rush back here. Didn't have time to get to the office. So let's just say that the work in our office is never slow. It's never boring. There's always something to keep you on your toes. And I'm glad that we were able to make the connection. Sorry we weren't able to actually see each other today. So as we jump into this, I just want to start with the basics, because your job is something I didn't realize existed when I started trying to or even when I was hired by HKS. This is something new to me, sustainability engineering. I think engineers, I don't necessarily think sustainability, and I think sustainability, I don't necessarily think engineering. So what is sustainability engineering? Can you give us what you do?
Sure. I'll start off with a quick kind of textbook definition of sustainability engineering or engineer. Essentially, it's kind of a role that allows you to guide a process, whether it's design or operations, in a way that you use energy and resources wisely and efficiently to be able to maintain buildings and be able to maintain our quality of life now, but also for future generations to have the same quality of life as well. But I guess my own definition is really being able to create an environment through collaboration with other designers and people on the design team to be able to create high performance buildings, whether it be energy, water, even the health of the people within the building, in a way that really utilizes resources and creates a strong community or environment And that's something that's resilient as well. You know, a lot of times we, you know, expect these buildings to be around for a long time, and be able to resist, you know, changes within the environment, climate, and be adaptable as well. So all of those aspects kind of rolled into one.
Interesting. So is that a consultation gig, or so there's an architecture and design team, and then you come along and supplement with, you know, because we architects, we know a lot, but we don't know that much about everything. And so it takes specialists sometimes to make sure that we're being responsible with resources. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, yeah, no, exactly. You know, so a lot of what we do focuses on the building sciences. So identifying opportunities and strategies that can really create those high performing buildings, whether that's looking at insulation, looking at the mechanical system, ventilation, things of that nature, water efficiency, whether it be the plumbing fixtures in the building, domestic hot water usage, and so on and so forth, and even lighting. I think a lot of times people kind of focus on some aspects more than others, but it's really a holistic kind of framework that we try to embody and kind of focus on when we're doing that collaboration with those individuals. So, you know, with that, primarily energy modeling is one of the means and methods that we do that with. I wouldn't say we have a crystal ball per se, but we're essentially using and informing design throughout the process in a way that can really maximize the efficiency of that building and really deliver a really high quality product for the owner and the client. And, you know, essentially we're trying to predict how much energy or even water usage that building is going to use before it's even constructed. So
Nice.
I think it's a great role to be a part of the team.
So how did you discover this? Because it doesn't sound like something that a lot of colleges have a track for. It sounds a little specific.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, while a lot of universities, whether it's at the undergraduate level or even graduate level, start to offer more of those programs now, you know, I've been out of school now for about 7 or 8 years. It probably wasn't as strong back then. And surprisingly, my background is actually in civil engineering. So it wasn't until maybe my junior or senior year in college that I really kind of made that transition from civil engineering into kind of the more built environment. Because when you think about civil engineering, you think about buildings, bridges, wastewater treatment, transportation, things of that nature. And I knew, you know, kind of emerging out of college that I wanted to do something that had to do more on the sustainable side or green side as it relates to infrastructure. And, you know, energy engineering, energy modeling is kind of where it landed me. Not only hands-on experience in the field, but also, you know, experience working with other disciplines, you know, like I'm doing now.
Cool. So if I wanted to get, you know, into the energy modeling, resource conservation side of things, do you go for a specific engineering degree, or do I get kind of a general engineering and maybe work in that way, work more specific from there?
So you could really get there from two different pathways. You could come from a more general engineering background, whether that be mechanical, electrical, you know, things of that nature, and transition into a role like this. Or if you're, you know, laser focused, and you know that's exactly what you want to do in energy engineering, green engineering. There are definitely programs out there that that are more focused, where you get kind of that hands-on experience within the field. You know, I think now with, you know, even before the situation with COVID-19 and so on and so forth, there's been a lens on green and sustainability and things of that nature. And I think it doesn't necessarily limit itself to these particular roles. I think there's a piece that all disciplines have to play, whether it be someone in the healthcare industry or whether it be in, you know, other industries. I think from our particular perspective, though, since buildings use about 40%, or sorry, account for about 40% of the carbon emissions, it's our role to be able to impact buildings in a way that will help reduce that impact on the environment. So that's kind of where we come from our perspective.
Yeah, let's talk about that impact on the environment, because I see a lot of headlines these days where, you know, if we don't change everything about what we do in the next 5 years, the world's going to end by 2030. Uh, is it too late for this to matter, or does sustainability engineering still have room to work?
I think there's always opportunity for growth. I know that there are a lot of different programs out there that have kind of stretch targets or goals, whether it be 2030, 2050. And, you know, like most things, you kind of have to come at it from different angles, right? So, you know, we have our built environment piece on the architecture side. Other industries have their roles to play as well. Um, and so I think a lot of it also stems from the fact that, you know, as users and consumers, we drive a lot of the demand for some of these practices, right? And so starting from there, along with, you know, owners and operators and things of that nature, can really help kind of push some of these targets and things of that nature, whether it be carbon reductions, looking at embodied carbon, operational carbon, um, and even all the other stuff too, like recycling and so on and so forth, and waste is huge as well. So it's kind of a multifaceted approach. But you know, I think, you know, whether you believe in climate change or not, I would say definitely from a standpoint that, you know, we know that humans have, you know, a significant impact on the environment, and there's ways that we can help minimize or mitigate that to be able to preserve it. Is kind of, you know, a broad generalization or stance, if you will. So.
Absolutely. I see some questions about, is this sustainability thing that just what HKS does on specific projects that a client wants it, or is that intrinsic to all that we do? What's your take on that, Mike?
So it is ingrained in kind of our design process. And I know I kind of touched on it before about integrative design process, where we bring everyone to the table and we try to um, create an environment where we aren't necessarily all necessarily quote unquote experts, but learners within the design process, so that everyone has a say in terms of opportunity to really maximize and really understand the project, the place, the space, and things of that nature as it relates to how they can really create a great facility. Because at the end of the day, we're building and designing these buildings for people. So I think kind of focusing on that aspect as well kind of will have a trickle down effect on some of the other measures, because there's a lot of synergies when it comes to, you know, HVAC or lighting and things of that nature that can be beneficial for a project.
Absolutely. One more question, give you an opportunity to brag. What's your favorite project you've worked on? What's the project that you think exemplifies what you do?
Ah, um, I would say a project that I've worked on recently, and I say this because even though it's a small project, it speaks to the opportunities that are available if you seek them out. So it was a small renovation project here in the Dallas area. Um, it was a theater that's going to be renovated and revitalized. And so on that project, we were able to get involved with energy modeling and the design process and things of that nature, but also look at other opportunities for unique financing mechanisms to be able to offset first costs for the owner, in addition to some of those operational savings, and even do renewable energy and solar on the project, which essentially had less than a year payback. And so kind of looking at those things early on are beneficial, just because even though they may not be pursued on the project, it's a learning process. And I think whether it's the consultants, you know, the people that are on the team, or even the owner, is to always offer that kind of, I don't want to say olive branch, but just a means for them to be educated about sustainability. Because although that it may not happen on this particular project, you know, there's always that next project. So they were really, you know, satisfied with what we did on that project. And it felt really, really good, because that's something that had high visibility in the community and really kind of embodied kind of our process. And it was really streamlined, in my opinion. So.
That's fascinating, and I'm glad that HKS has opportunities to affect all scales, because I know we do everything from the skyscrapers and the high rises where the energy model can save 25% off the year's energy use, all the way down to the small scale renovations. I look forward to that. And we'll, when we post this video, we'll look for some related resources. Maybe Mike can refer us to articles where we talk about the results that we get from this process. But that is our time allotted for today's interview. I appreciate Mike very much. Thank you for joining us for this and being our guinea pig on the first draft of this virtual career day. Big shout out to all the HKS marketing team who helped put this together and refine this idea. And thanks everyone for logging on and the questions you submitted. Look for us next week. If this was your cup of tea and you think sustainability engineering is up your alley, that's awesome. Come learn more about what we do next week. If this seems too technical and too jargony for you, that's cool. We've got a lot of other people around the firm, and we're excited to introduce you to what they do as well. So thanks everybody, stay safe, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, Mike.
Bye-bye, everyone.